Welcome to part 2 of my chat with Zach and Leo out of the studio. If you haven't already, definitely check out part 1 at the link below. I challenged Zach and Leo to an epic game of mini golf, and then they showed me a killer cue from their score for Weird, the Al Yankovic story. In part 2, we're going to talk a little bit more about that Weird score, along with some nerdy composer stuff like how they set up their Cubase template and why more composers don't work together as a duo. So without further ado, here's part 2 of Out of the Studio with Zach and Leo. So I want to talk to you guys about this, the new score that you did, recently, Weird, the Al Yankovic story.
Okay.
It's a fantastic score. I really love what you guys did with it.
Thank you.
And so you want to tell me a little bit how you got started on that project?
Yeah, sure. We know the director really well, Eric Appel. This was like a big passion project for him. He actually made this video when he was working at Funny or Die, like years ago. He called me one day and he's like, "Hey, remember that Weird Al video? Like, yeah, Al and I are like working on the feature script." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, like what? Like that's gonna get made?" And then like a couple months later, he was like, "Yeah, so I think this is getting made." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And then the next call was like, "Yeah, so we start shooting in a month." And I was like, "Oh, okay, we're making this movie."
And they shot it in 18 days.
Oh yeah,
which is
the schedule's totally
unreal.
insane for the movie.
But I kind of expected to be like almost like UHF was, where it's really silly and over the top. But what was so brilliant is it really plays it straight. But your score kind of takes the same approach. It really, for the most part, plays it, straight.
That's something that was like always kind of in the vision with Eric and Al, is that the music was really going to be the most sincere part of the whole film and was going to like ground it in a way. And because it's grounded, it makes the whole thing funnier. So, we saw the film in Toronto at TIFF when it premiered, and it was a packed theater, so no one had seen it. It was the world premiere. And, the second the mom finds the Hawaiian shirt in the beginning and pulls it out, and the strings swell into the Weird title, and it's a really sincere film score moment. Like, it sounds like a Silvestri score. Everyone just dies laughing because they know, oh, this is the type of movie we're gonna have right now.
Yeah.
Like the score is kind of like, it's a really like, that is the score's moment. There's no dialogue, there's no sound effects. And I think that indicates to the audience, like this is the type of story you're about to hear. So it does a lot in that sense. And it continues throughout the whole movie to kind of play it straight for the most part.
And it must have been fun to get to write in all those genres of like those 90s, Forrest Gump type of films.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the stuff we grew up on. Like we're both 90s kids, so like that golden era of kind of like, when you look back on it, it's almost like schlocky, but it's like beautiful filmmaking. Right. Like these kind of Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump, I don't know, Philadelphia. I just think of all those like Silvestri score. I mean, Tom Newman obviously did Shawshank, but like it's like that canon.
Yeah.
All the best picture winners from the early 90s.
Right.
And early on, you hear your theme played on the accordion. I think it's like one of the first scenes. Was there a certain scene that you kind of saw to make you think of that theme?
Yeah.
Or?
The first scene that we wrote the theme to the scene was Al's speech at the very end, the last cue in the movie.
Okay.
And that was kind of like the full-blown version of the theme, A section, B section, build. And that was the first thing we showed to Eric.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Great." And he was like, that was the assignment. And then from there, it was off to the races.
It's kind of a one-theme movie.
Yeah, it is.
There's really just the one theme, and like in some of those more genre things, we kind of get athematic in some ways, but like we always come back to that, and it's always reinforcing it kind of in different ways, and I think it is pretty effective that way.
And honestly, I think props to like a Roku executive who I think was the one who said, "Oh, take one of the cues from the movie and put it over the logo at the beginning."
Oh yeah,
because that might be what you're referencing.
Yeah, that's where we're with the accordion.
That's the very first thing you hear, and I think that was an amazing touch. And again, it's one of those things that like gives the audience just a little wink and a nod and says like, this is the type of movie you're about to hear.
Another cue that I loved in the movie was when Al meets Madonna and they're at his house, and you just wrote this really lush, romantic orchestration.
Would you like to see the rest of the house?
There's only one room I'm interested in seeing.
Oh, I'm doing some work on the bathroom, but there's another one downstairs.
Oh, I'm not talking about the bathroom.
And let me show you to the laundry room.
Oh, Yankovic. Are you playing with me?
Yes.
So weird.
Do you have any inspiration behind that?
Yeah, or Eric said, what was his word? Opulent. He
Opulent.
said, like, you know, it needs
Yeah.
to be opulent. And I think he said, like, oh, I'm kind of hearing piano. And then we were kind of like, okay, like, what should we do with this? Like, is it a one-off? Is it, I don't know. So we just kind of wrote this. I would say it's like Rachmaninoff doing a Debussy cover. It's like kind of like over-the-top pianistic version of kind of an impressionist harmony thing. But it really swells into this like giant old school Hollywood thing, which is cool. And it's like a piano concerto at that point, which our friend Jeff Babco played, who's like one of the best in the world. So he just insanely crushed it. But actually that was not the original end for that cue. This was one of the one of the biggest notes we probably got when we turned in a version. We originally went into like kind of a synth pop Madonna-esque thing when they like come together and start making love.
okay.
They attempted with Like a Virgin, which they were not going to use.
Which they weren't able to license.
Right,
and so
right.
we were like, oh, we'll just like do something like that. It might have even been based on the theme. I don't even remember.
It was, yeah,
it
it
was
was
based
like,
on the
yeah.
theme. And when we played it, the reaction was kind of like, yeah, this works, but since there's this beautiful thing before it, it just kind of feels like it should like take off to whatever the next level is.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is obviously just from a composer point of view, like really fun. So
yeah.
yeah, we're happy where that one ended
Totally.
up. And again, that's another scene where like people seem to really notice the music and always
Yeah.
like mention it to us, and that
No
just
accordion
feels
on that
great.
one, though.
Yeah, no accordion, just
Unfortunately.
piano, beautiful piano.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been working on Cobra Kai for like 5 seasons now?
Yeah.
Or how was it like? Was it nice change to,
was really
do
nice.
different
Yeah.
genre
Yeah, it was-
for this movie?
I think we both really excel when we get to switch genres, like show by show, have things that are totally different that you can kind of like jump between, because at least that really excites me and helps me.
Yeah. It was, I mean, compared to Cobra Kai, it's like a minimalist score,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah, yeah,
Like
super easy,
we're
right.
really used to like, you know, we didn't have a guitar on Weird at
Yeah.
all. Like there's not one guitar.
yeah.
So like that's already is just such a big difference. And we really just kind of had the orchestra was like the lead voice, and we recorded it in Budapest, and that was the main thing. We had some other small sessions here and there, but it was really like, it was nice. It was kind of just like a nice reset in a way to do something. It's still kind of a maximalist score, just because we approach
what we
things.
do,
That's what we
yeah.
do. But like, it was. We do not often get the chance to just write a, you know,
Simple orchestral score. Like there's
score.
always
Right.
like an asterisk
Yes,
somewhere.
exactly.
And so this was nice.
I always like to ask about other composers' templates and your Cubase setup, because I have like 2,000 tracks in mine. I'm always like wondering maybe I need to simplify. But yeah, how do you have yours set up?
I went through my template last week and deleted all the tracks I don't use.
Yeah.
Feels great to just be like, nope.
Yeah.
I'd say they're like a few hundred. We don't have
We have
identical
different- yeah, we don't have
templates, but they're like pretty close. Probably a few hundred. We both use VE Pro to set it up, but we also both have kind of a mix because we work on one computer. Like we just use Mac Studio, and so like VE Pro's running on the same computer, and we also will have, depending on the project, like a lot of deactivated Contact instances or other software instances that are more specific to the project, or just that some stuff it's easier to have it in your template like that because you want to put a lot of effects on it or something than it is to have it live in VE Pro. Like for me,
right.
what lives in VE Pro is like the stuff that's really never changing. It's just like the orchestra pre-mixed.
Right.
Personally, I put a lot of emphasis on like playability when I'm picking orchestral samples, because like there's a lot of music to write and a lot to write really quickly, and the last thing I want to do is think about all the stuff that libraries sell themselves with, like tons of articulations, tons of mic positions, tons of whatever. Like, I just need it to play the right stuff when I'm hitting and like sound close enough to real.
Yeah.
And like you can massage a lot with that, but playability is key. I think.
Are you doing separate articulations per tracks, or are you
I like
doing?
that.
Yeah.
I do. I actually do. I do the opposite. I have.
you
I have
switch.
it. I have an articulation. I switched to like articulation map,
Okay.
which I like.
I have like
Yeah.
a kind of crazy combined system where like I have, you know, horn long, horn legato, horn shorts, but the shorts, I just somewhere along the line picked CC5 for this, but basically all my short articulations have 3 articulations on them, a short, medium, and long. And I
Okay.
use CC5 to switch, so I have like a touchpad that'll just shoot out like 165 or 127 on that
Oh,
channel.
okay, yeah.
And I've programmed everything in my template to, if there could be sub-articulations, it goes to CC5 and does that.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, because then it's like you get what you need, but it's limited. And with shorts, it is pretty useful, I think, to make a really good mock-up to switch from short to medium to long to like really get the phrasing right.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, like I quantize everything almost. Like I'm not obsessing over the humanization of it. I'm not like,
Yeah.
it's because look, it's got to go to an orchestrator
Yeah.
a lot of the time. It's got to go to, you just want clean MIDI. Also, when you're trying to edit MIDI or make conforms,
Right.
when you like
Oh,
have
yeah.
a bunch of things that are like barely over the bar line or barely under, it's like
Yeah.
impossible. So I think like we both really emphasize like playability, like I said, and also
Yeah.
like streamlined kind
Right.
of workworkflow.
Keeping it clean.
Yeah,
and
because otherwise
organized.
there's just too much music to write.
Yeah.
Like you can't.
Yeah.
we're, we're really like I also am very I feel like we both are. I mean, we put a lot of work into our mock-ups, but I don't know about you. Like I really as Leo said, we don't have much time, and like, you know,
yeah.
maybe you heard a little bit on the cue that we were reviewing, but it's like if it sounds good, great. Like
Yeah,
it's
right.
not we don't have the time to like kind of like really spend the nitty gritty. It's nice when we do get that, and maybe if it's like a
Yeah.
really big piece, important piece, then yeah, we'll do that. But I think we really like our templates are focused on really like efficiency and still making it sound good, but
Yeah.
it's not as much getting into like just like this the 2000 track thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
the other thing that I feel like we've been doing recently a lot is like, especially this is more of like a TV thing, but like doing the first couple of episodes, like spending a lot of kind of like exploratory time on the
Yeah.
first couple episodes, and having like, let's say our normal template that we just pull up, and then once you have 2 episodes of material or even 1 episode, going and just doing a track archive, like just
Yeah.
saving a bunch of tracks and just saying like
Yeah.
adding those to the template, and great, now you have a sound for the show.
Right.
Right,
So like on
right.
Twisted Metal, we just did that, where the first 2 episodes, we had like all these new sounds that we were finding, and we recorded some percussionists and a bass player who had like a 6-string bass and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And by the time we hit the 3rd episode, we had a whole new library of like 50 tracks that we could just use and everything, but we didn't have that for the first 2.
Right. Right.
And it's a nice way to like give yourself the time to, you know, as a composer, it's like we get lost in, we can get lost in the exploratory time, but like
Yeah.
we've been trying to get better about that.
Yeah.
And like really spending the time to find new sounds so that everything isn't just opening up the template
Yeah.
and
Right.
it's like easy.
So it's every show has a unique.
Yeah, we
sound.
try.
And
we
you
try.
like you want to set up rules for yourself. Like I
Yeah.
think like
Yeah.
we're all more creative when there's limitations, because then you have to problem solve.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's it like working collaboratively? Because I think that's an interesting, like you guys have such a close and working relationship, and you guys seem to get along really well, you know, and you've worked together.
It's all an act.
No, but I can tell it's sincere, and so what's that like, and like, how do you like, just like on a practical level, how do you decide, like divide up the cues, and are you sending cues to the other one to say, what do you think of this, and what's that like?
All the above, kind of. I mean, we're on FaceTime or the phone all day. Like,
Yeah.
we call each other 10, 12 times a
Yeah.
day. We're pretty good at kind of divvying up work. We do a lot of file trading, but it always kind of starts with like when we finish a spotting session, one of us is just kind of like, hey, I've got an idea for this, or I've got an idea for this. And we're very big on like just follow the enthusiasm. So
Yeah.
whoever has an idea for a scene gets first crack at the scene.
Yeah.
And so they'll start something, maybe they'll finish it, maybe they'll get it halfway, maybe they'll need some extra juice in there. So then we'll just kind of start trading files. Like our templates aren't identical, but they're close enough that we can really easily set stuff up between us. Or sometimes it'll be like, hey, Zach, can you like do cool percussion stuff on this? Like I'm just gonna print a mix and like drop it in. It's 140 BPM, and then he'll send me some stuff and I'll remix it in, and like we do a lot of that.
Someone just said to us recently, they said, I remember we were talking to someone and they were talking about how like, oh, I imagine that when you're working together, it can be difficult in the sense that like you're more like kind of vulnerable, like you're kind of like, oh, you're like, I'm nervous like to show Leo this thing, or you're kind of always like, what is the other person gonna think or something? And I find it like quite the opposite. And if anything, it is an amazing resource to have someone to bounce ideas off of. It's like I mean, it's part of it is like going to the gym with someone, and you're kind of always wanting to like, you know, you're gonna do better work in that sense. Like when you do have someone kind of like that you're gonna show stuff to. But then the other thing is like we work on plenty of things where like Leo just kind of mentioned it, where you might hit a wall and you just say like, just listen to this and give me an idea of what you think, or like add a guitar or add, you know, whatever, percussion or a synth or anything, and that can just be enough to like kickstart the whole process again. And it's awesome to have that. It's really awesome. So we always talk about how we're surprised that more people don't collab.
Yeah, I think it would be really beneficial for a lot of composers. Because like, look, writers have writing partners all the time, and like no one thinks it's weird. Composers seem like weird about it.
Does anyone think it's weird? I don't think it's weird. Do people think it's weird?
No, maybe they don't think it's weird.
I
but
think
like they seem to like, I feel like people are like shy about it. Like they probably because they like either feel vulnerable or like, I don't know, sometimes I think composers are like a little too competitive with each other, but like not overtly, they won't say it, but then they like actually are. And so I don't know, it just doesn't seem that common in this community. I think where I think it like really shines is then when we go to work on our own stuff where we're not working together, and then we're also working together on stuff, like your brain just works differently in a collab versus a not collab. And so I feel like such a more well-rounded musician because I get to do both. And like sometimes something I'll be working on with Zach will like really inform another project I'm working on, and sometimes the opposite. And like you just never quite know. Like, look, we all just want to be better musicians and like have fun making music, whatever that means, and it's just more exposure and more experience and more ways to do it. So I recommend it to everybody.
It is tricky in the sense that like we all have our own systems. You have your own system, you have your 2000 track template. Like we have our systems, and like the times where we've had to work with other people, it's hard. So like I get, you know, it's easier for a lot of people to sometimes just be like, I'm gonna just do this on my own, and it's easier for me, it's just faster. And we have the benefit, you know, we worked together for years at Chris Beck's place. So, you know, we came up under the same tutelage, the same file hierarchies, the same like way that we approached, you know, laying out cues or whatever. So
just like the steps to recording.
The shorthand is
It's
there already.
I think that's probably like one of the biggest barriers to maybe why more people don't do that is just that it's hard to find that person that you just really gel with, and you guys had that opportunity to meet each other. And it's like maybe we need like a composer
speed dating.
Exactly.
Well, it's like other musicians, like non-film composer musicians, do it all the time. It's like that's how all the best albums are made. It's like so and so got stranded in this city, and so was doing a session, so they just ended up wherever and made music for 2 days. And like, I don't know. Composers seem less open to that kind of.
It's a solitary
chaos.
job.
It is.
You know, just being in the studio and being in your room and whatever. That's why it's nice, and it's nice to have a partner also when things go to shit too. Like it honestly, like it feels a lot nicer when you get a whole score thrown out. When I call Leo and commiserate about it. It feels a lot better. Because we both had that. We've had that on our own projects, and it's sad. Because then we can just complain to each other. It's not the same.
So what stuff do you have coming out? What are you working on now that we can look forward to?
Twisted Metal.
Twisted Metal.
Coming out, if you're familiar with the 90s video game, late 90s, you know, big old demo derby car Cars and Guns.
Yeah, Cars and Guns. That's like really all the information that's out right now. I feel like there isn't really a trailer out, but
yeah, it's a crazy show.
Yeah.
It was really fun to work on, and it comes out at the end of July. So it's going to be on Peacock, so that's one to look out for.
Yeah.
What else do we have coming out?
And we've got, well, we haven't talked about it too much, but we've got a new show from John, Josh, and Hayden, who are the creators of Cobra Kai, called Obliterated. And there's really no info on that, but all we'll say is that we are stoked about it.
I think it's the best thing we've ever done.
And it is, they have outdone themselves on a TV show, and it's just an awesome, awesome project that we can't wait to share with everyone when it comes out, whenever it comes out.
Yeah.
It seems like you guys get to work on like the coolest projects, like not just, like Cobra Kai and the ones you're talking about too, but also musically. And you think that's because of the people that you're working with, or is it because, you guys have such a great musical sensibility of blending like, orchestral and rock and percussion and just this whole, energetic style. I don't know.
That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, that means a lot, because I feel like we always are like, oh God, we want this cool gig, and so got this cool gig.
But who isn't like that? Everyone's like that.
So that's nice to hear. I think it's a mix of the people we work with, like, tends to let us cook, as we like to say. Like, they give us a lot of leash, and I think that's because we frequently come into a project when we're up for it. Like, we usually try to like have a concept that we want to pitch and be like, hey, we want to do this. We think this will make the show so much cooler and better. Like, Cobra Kai is a great example of that. This kind of like 80s hybrid thing, and it never strays too far from that, even when it gets like totally gigantic, like symphonic. And so like that was such a fun process for us that we kind of try to bring that to every show. Like, whether it's, we do this show Florida Man that is like kind of this like swampy, like our take on like Ethio jazz type of thing, which is like something we both dabbled in and listened to a lot of, but like isn't necessarily like the first thing I would sit down and write, and we had a blast doing it. And so we usually try to come in with a hard pitch, and I think because of that, the shows have a lot of personality.
We try, we really do try to make every project just something that we're excited about writing. And even if it's an out there kind of pitch, like, I think something that we've kind of, as we've been doing this a little bit longer and like getting older and wiser, like, I think maybe the old me, like, you pitch something and the showrunners or the directors don't like what they hear, and then you throw the whole thing out. And that's kind of not what we do anymore. We kind of say like, well, what's the note behind the note? It's very rare that someone is going to say, I do not like this whole concept.
Right.
Generally,
because they probably hired us for that concept.
And
so it's like,
and we've had things where we wrote not to picture, and it was not Doug, and then we put it to picture, and it was approved. And a lot of it is just like, we work in a very different, music is not just the only medium that we're working with. So it's really important that when you have something up to picture, like, what is that communicating? And if someone doesn't like something, it's generally not like the vibe. It's not the whole like palette necessarily, or whatever it could be, but it really has to do with like, what is it accomplishing on screen, and if it's not working in the director's vision. But that's why, so maybe we sometimes get a little stubborn with our ideas, and we just say like, let's just try it again. But honestly, most of the time it actually kind of works. As long as you can still, honor the direction that the showrunners want to take it in. So I think, and then it really just leads to us just being really happy with everything we make, because we can say, oh, like, we finally got to do our, acid jazz score that we've been wanting to do. Okay, like, well, that itch was scratched. Like, moving on to the next thing, and that's the best part of our job. And we're lucky that we get to do, that we're hired to like do these crazy things. So we just want to keep that up.
What would be what's a score or a movie that you would like to do, or show that you haven't got a chance to do, a genre or type of movie that you would love to do?
I always just want to score westerns. That's like my goal. I kind of did one last year.
Did one, right?
Yeah, but it's kind of like a I turned it into kind of like a psychological thriller
Right.
Western. It's about buffalo hunting with Nick Cage in it. It's called Butcher's Crossing.
Oh, cool.
It's coming out this fall, but I'm not sure when.
Okay.
Yeah, that ad is, it's kind of a trip. But like, I don't know. I always say like, I feel like James Horner got to score all the movies that I wish I could score. You know, like
Yeah.
Apollo 13, like
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like
Beautiful Minds. Like these are, I would love to
Yeah.
do that stuff.
I mean, we're like we love Daniel Pemberton, and like I feel like everything Daniel Pemberton does, he's got like the
Yeah.
dream gigs,
Yeah.
right? Like he
does
has
all the cool
so
stuff.
much fun, and talk about someone who just like always has like a different pitch and a different idea for everything.
Yeah.
I want to do more horror all the time. I mean, horror is my favorite genre.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah.
I just feel like if you're not kind of like a horror composer, you have it's like people look at your IMDb or whatever and they're like, oh, can they do horror? I don't know. And also, I know people who do horror who are like, I would kill to do a romantic comedy. I would do anything to do a romantic comedy. So
Yeah.
that's the composer's
Right.
paradox.
Yes.
Yeah, I just worked on additional music with Anne Catherine
Uh-huh.
Dern on a horror movie, and she's done a lot of animation and kids movies, so she was like super excited
Ready
to
to
get the
go.
chance to do a horror movie,
Yeah.
you know,
I
and it's
know.
got like pipe organs and
Yeah,
choirs.
it's
and-
awesome.
yeah, so it's definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think horror is just a genre that allows for music to just be weird.
Yeah, it's like maximum
Yeah.
flexibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just throw distortion on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even I mean,
Super
I love the
sparse,
kind of
super,
like,
like-
the kind of like old 70s B movie horror soundtracks. Not
yeah.
the synth ones, but the ones that are like incredibly orchestral. If we played it for you, you would be like, wow, what is this beautiful, lush piece of music? But it's actually for Cannibal Holocaust, where they're like eating each other.
Yeah.
But it makes it super effective because it's horrifying.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for hanging out. It's been a blast and talking with you, and we're looking forward to your new scores coming out, and definitely everyone should check out Weird. It's a great score.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Super
This has
fun.
been so much fun.
I love showing you Cubase sessions.